Well, Griffin, we are live after Dynamite ended. And also, I've got the collision portion of the summer blockbuster in the background as Kyle Fletcher and Anthony Bowens lock up. So we'll keep an eye on that for developments, although I think we got a week's worth of major developments on Dynamite tonight. Certainly the bookended segments on the show. We'll start with Kenny Omega and Kazuchika Okada in a contract signing hosted by Tony Schiavone. And we've got a big angle. Multiple aspects of a big angle. Just cutting right to it. After a lengthy and I thought well-produced video package talking about the history of Okada and Omega, which I think was a good orientation for fans who have been told but not shown why their matches were spectacular. There's a lot they could have done with that video package, but, I give it a thumbs up what they produced. It looked super athletic and epic, and it's hard to watch that and not think, okay, people told me this was a big deal, but now I can see with my own eyes that it was, because that's like 8 years ago now. It was a long time ago that some of the stuff was happening. And then we had the contract signing, which went pretty smoothly. Tony Schiavone revealed a new title belt, which would be the AEW Unified Championship, which I guess competes with AEW World Championship for top prestige. But the Continental and International merge.
Beautiful belt, though.
Yeah, and distinct. I like when they're distinct like that. Had kind of it's
so.
modern, but a bit of a throwback vibe to it also. So then as they shook hands and seemed like, okay, this is going to be a fair, fun, historic rematch years later. Hopefully it's good. Then Don Callis comes out and he complained under the pretext of this match should be involving Kyle Fletcher or Takada, not Okada. Did I say? Oh, no, Fletcher Takeshita. Or Takeshita, not Okada. Yeah. And so that was a pretext for him being there. But it was actually a diversion because it caused Kenny to turn his back, face Callis at ringside, and Omega said, I know all your tricks. And Callis says, you don't know this one. And then Okada attacks him. So that's a big angle, but it got brutal, including not only the use of a baton, which I never think looks all that threatening in wrestling context, but compared to a lot of other weapons. But then Okada, after being scolded by Christopher Daniels in the corner, and Okada looking all innocent, puppy-eyed, like, maybe I went too far. Sorry. Then he leaps off the ring apron while Omega's being stretchered and lands an elbow drop on him. And Omega, in a very graphic view, coughs up blood as the announcers had talked throughout, the segment about his abdominal surgery for diverticulitis. And so that's pretty much it. I mean, that's a recap of the big angle. And for people who didn't see it, now you kind of know. I thought it was good for me to kind of march through it too and just kind of relive it a little bit. So Griffin, tell me your reaction to this in terms of they've got, a month to make people care a lot about this match and draw a big buy rate. How did they do?
I have some mixed feelings about it. I think they did a great job. I really like the video package. I'm one of those that didn't catch the New Japan stuff. So only hearing about it, watching clips, catching the matches on YouTube out of context, not really seeing the entire build up to those matches, just seeing the matches because they're the matches that broke the 5-star rating. I didn't get to catch any of that live. So seeing that package was very good. Seeing that it was 1-1-1, and then Kenny won, and that was a great recap for someone like me. It was just a really distinct departure from the way they've presented Okada since he's come in. And great that the departure's here if they stick with that. The baton wrestling has to go one or the other way with it. Either stay away from a police baton in the middle of LA riots, or lean into it and say those are the same type of batons they're using in the riots. To leave it halfway is just a wimp way to present a weapon.
Yeah, riots might be overstating most of what's happening there, other than a couple isolated camera angles, more protests and pushback.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just want to clarify that.
Either play into it or don't use it as a weapon.
I thought when they pulled that out, I'm like, I'm a big believer in, if you're going to do it, own it. Don't do something halfway. And It is not, in the pro wrestling context, the most devastating looking weapon to use.
No.
I'm not saying I want to be hit with one. I'm just saying artistically, visually, it felt to me like they pulled that out in order to capitalize on current events, and pull that out. The blood was intense. Zach Barber, PWTorch contributor, like you, says the blood eruption from Kenny caught me off guard. He adds Okada trying to kill Kenny with his own diverticulitis.
It caught my wife's attention out of half of her eye. She was sitting there waiting for me to finish so I can go downstairs and do this so she can take over the TV. And she was watching something on her phone. And then when that blood spit out of Kenny's mouth, she looked up and said, "Whoa."
Yeah. So do you think, an angle like that is not meant for somebody peripherally watching who's not a fan. I don't want to judge it failure or success based on that, although I think it's noteworthy when something does jump off the screen to people who are in that context. Chris Johnson in the chat, who was negative on the show tonight, just said Kenny's blood spot was ridiculous, stupid, over the top, so fake. I felt nothing. And I mean, that's harsh, a harsh assessment of it, but it is an intense thing to do. Now, I think Omega has the history of the diverticulitis, and they wanted to make this more than watch it because it's a return match of something great that a lot of people didn't live through and have heard about, and some people are tired of hearing about it. They just want to see the match and show me if it's still good. And this angle brings a more traditional pro wrestling heel face vibe to it.
Yes.
I like Don Callis, at least temporarily, aligning with Okada, or Okada aligning with him. The announcers kind of said, is this permanent, or is this just to, give him an edge in the Omega match? Is this because it seemed like Okada was softening last couple of weeks, the heel aspect. We haven't seen him with the Bucks much lately, at all lately. The bitch thing was sort of saved and changed.
Yeah.
So I think that was it was meant to trick us into thinking this is going to be a straight up match. We didn't get that. Now we're getting a full-fledged heel, and Callis can spend the next 4 weeks he's got a history with Omega, so they can pull from that, and he gets to talk for Okada, and you have one of the more renowned managers for AEW and AEW history and of this era getting a chance to really shine. I think it's time for him to step up. I think this is one of the most important months in Don Callis' career, to be honest.
I have never been in a building with more heat than Don Callis trying to cut a promo. The old Denver hockey arena that they're tearing down, why they moved where they hold the Denver shows. Traditional hockey arena, and it was 2/3 sold out, and that place was so loud they could not hear each other in the ring talking to each other, cutting a promo on that Dynamite. So he draws heat. He can definitely get the crowd leaning heel in, and not splitting the cheers. The only thing I question is it not Continental rules, which keeps everybody away from ringside? Oh, you're muted, Wade.
That was early. I think probably not. I think because it's a unification match, I think all bets are off. If it was just a Continental title defense, that would be the default. They'd have to explain it wasn't. But I think since it's unifying two belts, the standard rules would override that.
Which would make me a little sad if they're taking that stipulation away, because that's what makes matches for that championship stand out.
Yep. I think Callis has to be at ringside.
He does now.
With all the hype. Yeah, with all that. So I think, one of the concerns going into this match, too, Andrew H. points it out in the chat right now, is I have serious reservations that Okada and Omega can recapture the magic from their matches 8 years ago. When you watch the earliest appearances of Omega in that video, it's a completely different person. I mean, just there's a youthfulness, there's a slenderness, there's a sleekness, there's a grace to his movement in the ring. His in-ring stuff now is still great. I mean, no question about it. But you can see 8 years. There's the wear and tear of that style, his lifestyle, whatever. Just normal aging that humans go through. It is it stood out too. Okada looks fine. You know, like he doesn't look as different as Omega, but you know, there's a lot of mileage on him too. Griffin.
I don't think it's all about recapturing the magic. It's the reunion show. You know, I'm a nostalgia guy. So, you know, where are they now, and where are they at in their lives and careers? And let's see them get back together after taking some time apart from each other. So I kind of see it as that reunion show where you get to see where they are at this point in their career. And that kind of is the story of, we have this legacy. We haven't wrestled each other in 7 years. And now let's see what a match is like. You know, and it's in wrestling, you don't have to sell the match. You don't have to sell the magic of what the match delivered. You only have to sell the magic of what you want people to buy. So, you know, I don't think it has to sell the match and to tell a story.
Yeah, and the stakes are high. I mean, they by saying this is unifying 2 belts, there's going to be this grand championship, dual championship is, you know, add stakes to it beyond, hey, guess what? We're going to do a match years later, past their peak prime era, and it'll still be really good, but it'll just be fun to see them. It's not a nostalgia match at this point fully. No. I mean, they're you know, they're still relevant, active wrestlers.
Yes.
For sure. Although, as Derek Mitchell points out, Omega said as much. He's not the same person in that video package. He said it in the promo. He goes, when I look at that, I hardly recognize myself. He didn't elaborate. Kenny, he almost always lets me down on the microphone. Like, I feel like even if it doesn't come naturally to him to be able to add gravitas to his resume and a match coming up, like, someone should work with him and say, all right, because he wasn't goofy and strange and weird tonight, which was good. He didn't go off on some tangent. So, you know, the absence of that negative is a positive. But, like, does he not have for this build, like, a 90-second promo that talks about what this meant to him in Japan, what it means to him to have Omega show up? I mean, he's like the best man speech at a wedding where you can see him scribbling notes on a napkin right before he has to go up, and you're like, you had months to plan for this. This is your best friend. It's a big moment in his life. Why are you scribbling notes of what to talk about on a napkin before you go up there? And that's
I would have gone for notes on a napkin at my wedding.
Fair enough. But I'd like to see evidence of Kenny sit down with someone and going, all right, let's meet the moment here on the microphone, and let's make it seem like, you know, you have more. And some would argue, no, Kenny with fewer words is better. I disagree. I think he could be coached and practiced into something that would be sincere, his words, but I don't know. Okay, let's pause. Let's introduce the show, set the table here, and then we're going to bring Eric Kroll into the conversation as our first caller. PWTorch contributor. He does AEW pay-per-view previews on the Wade Keller podcast with me regularly these days, and he did live through Okada-Omega in real time. It's what brought him back into wrestling after a long time away. He was a Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter columnist back circa 1990. And took time off. So I want to get his take on the build tonight and the angle too, Griffin. So we'll get to Eric after we introduce things here. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show on Wednesday, June 11th, 2025. I'm Wade Keller, host of the show, editor, publisher, and founder of the aforementioned Pro Wrestling Torch weekly newsletter, and also the website PWTorch.com with breaking news, special columns, flashbacks, polls, live TV and pay-per-view coverage, and more. Hope you're checking it out on a regular basis, hopefully daily, multiple times daily. Go to it like every minute. That'll help us. PWTorch.com. A lot of content you're not going to find anywhere else. We're not leaning into being the 17 site writing the hot SEO keyword story of the day that may or may not be relevant or accurate or taken out of context to get clicks. You know, we're more kind of magazine style. We do have news, but for sure, and live coverage, but we also really like the variety of perspectives and writing we have. There's a certain tone and brand approach to our coverage of wrestling, and it's kind of for people who outgrow yelling at people on Reddit and being frustrated with social media. So stop on out and check out the writing. My co-host today on the post show is Chris Griffin. He is a contributor to PWTorch.com. Griffin, welcome. You've been on shows before, but this is your first time with me on the post show. It's great to have you.
Yeah. It's kind of neat to be on the show from with the guy that I learned what a podcast was from back when they were. I just called them Torchcast, but just the Torch audio shows that you
Yeah,
did.
audio. We
So
still call them audio shows out of habit. I don't know if anyone
yeah,
else is still calling podcasts audio shows, but the word podcast wasn't around when we started doing these. So yeah,
yeah. I just
absolutely.
had to burn them to a CDRW so I could listen to them in the car.
We are pre-iPod, so
Yeah.
we kept our shows to like less than 50 minutes, so they would burn onto a CD and not get a warning on your computer that the file is too big to burn on a CD to listen in your car. So, yeah, it's we've been doing this a long time, and if you become a PWTorch VIP member, you can gain access on demand to almost our entire library of podcasts going back 20 plus years. PWTorch.com/GoVIP. That includes VIP exclusive podcasts, a customizable lineup of shows so you can subscribe to individual shows in your podcast feed, or a catch-all feed, or just a nostalgia and current events split. Real good customization on that works with the Apple Podcast native app and also iOS and Android third-party apps. Check out full details. That also gives you ad-free access to our ad-free website and our library of Pro Wrestling Torch newsletters dating back to the late 1980s. Full details at pwtorch.com/govip. And these shows that you're listening to right now have podcast versions for VIP members where the commercial breaks are just skipped over. So lots of perks come with it. And you're also just supporting us when you do that. And if you like what we're doing and appreciate our approach to covering wrestling, maybe a little level-headed, some integrity, lack of bombast and false debates. You take this side, I'll take that side type of thing. That's just not what we're into. Fortunately, we can get away with not being into that. Please do support us. And like I said, we're not asking for charity or donations. You get a lot in return when you do that. Chris, tell people a little bit about you and your background as a fan. Obviously, you just revealed you've been listening to podcasts before podcast was a word. Tell people about your fandom a bit.
So go back to my original, what hooked me as a wrestling fan growing up in Southern Missouri. We kind of got these syndicated UWF shows that became WCW Worldwide. That's what I found out. But, I see WCW Worldwide on Saturday nights. And at my grandma's, she had TBS, and I was able to see Ravishing Rick Rude versus Sting. And I videotaped that Clash of the Champions, and that hooked me as a fan. So been watching for the better part of 33 years, and been a collector of all things. I sit in the wrestling corner for the wrestling podcast, but I'm a collector of all things. So ended up when you don't have space for everything or enough money for everything, you find a way to monetize the hobby. So I've turned it into a business. So nerdstalgia.shop. You can link to my Mercari store. You can link to my socials. You can see where my Comic Cons are, and you can even link to the Torch there. I put a link to the Torch at the bottom of our website, Wade. So as
Awesome.
a contributor, so you can get right to the work to the PWTorch website from nerdstalgia.shop. So start there and then go do that every hour. Go to Nerdstalgia and then go click that link for PWTorch.
Either order's fine with me. Talk about your top 5 columns and your approach to that on pwtorch.com.
So I write a weekly top 5 column, usually with something that's going on in wrestling that inspires my thoughts. Toying with what I'm going to write about tomorrow. Last week was my thoughts on Fyter Fest. I was there live, so gave my thoughts and lasting impressions from being at an AEW show. I've been to a few. I've gone to most of the times they've come to Colorado, and flew out for the Sting retirement because of, that's what hooked me. I had to go see Sting retire. I kind of look at history and nostalgia through my years as a fan, and try to link it to a little bit of pop culture, a little bit of dry sarcasm in there that I hope comes through. And just talk about what's going on in wrestling and what's linked that to what's happened in the past.
Well, we've had a lot of cool new writers to PWTorch this year, and it's great to have you in the mix. And the top 5 list you're doing a great job with. There's some columns where it's like raw hits and misses. You know what you're going to get with John Mazzara. But top 5, you get to really show your range of topics and your knowledge and just your interest in what to compile. So I encourage people to check it out. They can catch up on them. There is a menu on PWTorch.com, and in the opinion specialist category, you can do a drop down and find the top 5 list and catch up. All right. If you're listening to us live, you can participate in the chat. Type your questions into them. We'll keep an eye on them. You can do a super chat to for sure get our attention and get on the show. You can also email us, wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. If you don't watch our live stream on YouTube after Raw, Dynamite, or SmackDown, you can still contribute to the show that way. We'd love to hear from more of you doing that. And you can also be a caller on the show, a video or audio only caller. We have a link to be a caller on our Patreon page. And you can search, by the way, PWTorch on Patreon or Spotify and get a 7-day free trial to our VIP podcast lineup if you're in either of those ecosystems. When you if you are a Patreon supporter, you'll see a link posted shortly before we go live that'll allow you to be a video caller. And then we also post that link on our PWTorch VIP website in my TV reports, where I do live coverage, written coverage of Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So you can check that out also. All right. By the way, yesterday, Zach Cadorn, formerly of Pro Wrestling Torch, now Sports Illustrated and Brass Ring Media, joined me. We spent close to an hour analyzing the the King of the Ring and Queen of the Ring brackets, and also covered some AEW near the end of the show and a variety of other topics. A lot going on in WWE. We also, like I said, talk some AEW. So check that out. That is our blue logo show, and this is our red logo show. Both are available in podcast format. So if you're finding us on YouTube, but like me, you listen to a lot of podcasts, also be sure to search Wade Keller in your podcast app. Subscribe to not only the red logo show, and so that you get the podcast version of it, but also the blue logo show, which is our main podcast that features interviews, pay-per-view previews, our weekly flagship, some media Q&As, and more. Speaking of which, part of the blue logo show includes AEW pay-per-view previews. And Eric Kroll has been a regular guest on those shows, a regular co-host. So let's bring him on. He is a big fan, not only of New Japan, but especially Omega Okada matches. Eric, it's good to hear from you. Thanks for taking time to join us today for a segment.
Hello, Wade and Chris.
Hey.
So, Eric, what do you think tonight? Very open-ended question. What do you think of Okada-Omega specifically, I guess I should say?
So overall, it was a strong angle, but I do have some critiques. And so I've got some positives and some negatives. We can go over the positives first. The video package brigade finally got their wish tonight. They can stop screaming for a video package.
Did you watch it, or did you just get bored and fall asleep?
I watched it.
Okay, good.
It was even a long video package. Some might even say a WWE style video package. And so all of those folks who've been clamoring for this for forever, who
me.
And me.
Who've been beating the drum to the point where Taz last week gave a little aside. Don't worry, we're going to have a video package. I'm just trolling. Yes, they did have to do a video package to explain to people, what was New Japan World might have topped out at 100,000 subscribers or so, and not all of them were from the West. So you definitely needed to tell people why this was important. You needed to show instead of telling. So another positive thing, it was nice to see Okada try hard for once in AEW. He's been on the Shinsuke Nakamura and WWE plan since he got signed.
What did he try hard doing tonight? I didn't think it was that different.
He seemed to, he did a second elbow drop from the top. And it was closer to an actual elbow drop than an elbow fall, which is what he's been lazily doing for a long time. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the guy thinks he can get away with going half speed. Maybe the guy is banged up from all of those high mile years, but he seemed to try tonight. Don Callis as the mouthpiece makes sense. Great talker, heat magnet. Callis is Kenny's eternal foe in AEW, so that fell into a place. So some of the things maybe that they could have done differently. So this whole show, Dynamite overall, was a heavy heat show. The heels beat down the faces in numerous segments, right? And so when you have an all heat show, it's harder for things to stand out. Now, they smartly left this one for the last segments during the Dynamite first 2-hour portion of the show. So, but if you're going to have, it makes sense to put heat on the heels ahead of a pay-per-view, but if you're going to do heavy heat angles, you can consider spreading those out over a couple of weeks instead of, 3 or 4 of the same thing in one night. All of them stand out a little bit less, I think. The fake blood, the
you don't know it's fake.
The blood package that Kenny Omega clearly barfed out of his mouth. It was a bit much, I thought. It was the heaviest thing they could have done, I think, though. So I get it.
For a guy who's had diverticulitis, I mean, if you're ever going to do that, this is the time to do it. You're building up a big match, and he has that history. I mean, I don't know that bleeding out of the mouth is, or even internally, as a result of someone who had diverticulitis surgery over a year ago. But it in the pros and context of storytelling, I mean, it's fine.
Yeah, and they've consistently done that since Omega returned after his Wrestle Kingdom match in January. It's that they've used that the gut shot for heat on him in I think just about every feud. So for sure. I just think you could get better quality fake blood is all I'm saying. I don't know. It seemed like they cheaped it out. I laughed a little bit when I saw the copious amount of obviously fake blood. So the fake Okada turn, like Okada was going to turn face, right? I think they flicked at it for the briefest of moments earlier in the show. And I think that would have worked better if they'd set it up the last few weeks. Okada could have even had a match against the Don Callis guy. I mean, it's a minor quibble. I know Todd Martin of the excellent PWTorch podcast, The Fix, for VIP members, will be talking about we'll probably be railing against the Swerve that they did there.
It's a swerve that served a purpose. I think I don't think we're against the excessive use of swerves, doing a swerve for the sake of a swerve, and then being overly proud of yourself, and doing a swerve when there's no strategic purpose. If this were real, this swerve worked. This was a swerve where it led to a distraction that led to Kenny getting not only blindsided and hurt, but also showing up. Kenny thought he had the respect of Okada, and they're going to go do it one more time. So I just say, I think sometimes people think if you are critical of something in a category, you're against it under all circumstances. And that would be unfair to say for you, Eric, about video packages, even when you're trolling. And I think, I think from a Swerve standpoint, this at least doesn't have some of the negatives that a lot of the just nonsense swerves like FTR with their weird, overly complex turn. And even, I don't even know what the Hurt Business MJF stuff, if we could track that and figure out if they're swerving or just sloppy. But yeah, Griffin, you're nodding along on that, by the way. Then I'll throw it back to Eric.
Yeah. And also back to, we didn't really build up to it. I think that's a consistent critique I have of AEW is they too often can tell a good story. They just tell it too fast. They don't place all the breadcrumbs leading up to the story. And sometimes it just shows that they thought of something too late. So I totally see what he's saying about what Eric's saying about they could have done a little bit more leading up to this to build that respect that they thought that Kenny thought he had, and then the turn could have meant that much more.
I think it's easier for WWE to build that kind of a turn up for a few weeks because one of Paul Levesque's very limited number of booking ideas that he's displayed so far is faction tension, right? Every faction has tension. People team up just so they could start breaking them up, and sometimes they break them up and sometimes they don't, and you're left guessing. Some of the most memorable wrestling angles involved setting up, these are both from the 80s, involved setting up for weeks, heel turn. Hulk Hogan versus Paul Orndorff that spurred 70,000 people or whatever to go to the Toronto exhibition stadium for that match, and just a great hottest house show run. they set that up over the syndicated television show for weeks. Hulk Hogan wouldn't get out of the gym to return his take Paul Orndorff's call, and eventually Paul Orndorff turned on him, and you could see it coming. But for me, that was the first big turn angle I ever saw as a teenager, so it's burned in my brain. And then Ole Anderson once spent months, maybe the better part of a year, turning face to try and team with Dusty Rhodes in 1980, and Dusty agrees. They're in a cage match in 1980 at the Omni in Atlanta, and right away Ole just turns on him as soon as the cage door is shut, and it's a 5-on-1 beatdown. And then Ole gloats later, "I planned this for a year." I'm not saying you have to go to those extremes, but like couple of weeks. Couple of weeks of it maybe would have just helped a little bit. So that, again, a minor critique.
It's a wrestling tale as old as time.
Yeah. The extreme of that, I guess, the short turnaround, you could have had Omega and Okada do a tag against Takeshita and Fletcher, which is not only a great match, but you could still end it with a turn. So plenty of ways to go there. And I guess the final negative I had, which is I kept watching when they switched over to the Collision part of the show, and the second string announcers are Shivani. They're letting it burn in. They're continuing the solemnness, and it's AEW, so they did let this one breathe more than they normally do. However, when they did the transition to Collision, they didn't let it breathe long enough, and you went from solemn, serious face to boom, Adam Cole, baby. It was just like the worst possible guy, like the guy with go away already. You just need to repackage yourself and figure out a new act. So I snorted about that.
Well,
go ahead.
You do have a way better, and in my opinion, a way better announced team for Collision than you do on Dynamite, which always makes me sad.
The prestige of Okada-Omega for you, Eric, as somebody who lived through it now in 2025, where are you and people like you, speak for all people like you, who were brought back into wrestling because of the specialness in great part of this rivalry? How do you feel about the match? The chat room was talking about it. Can a match this far past its first peak hit a satisfactory peak for people who have really good memories of the first series of matches, just 2-3 years before AEW existed?
For me, it's the 2 out of 3 falls match. The fourth one, the last one that they referred to, it's my favorite match of all time. It's a lot of people's favorite match of all time. I think it's the best match of all time, most highest rated match of all time. That was a 2 out of 3 falls match, and I think I've only ever been invested as much in a wrestling match or close to it when we were in Minneapolis watching Hangman take on Omega for the title in November of 2021, I think. That first fall, it goes almost a half hour, and Okada sits down. Kenny tries a sunset flip. Okada sits down and pins him for the first fall. I jumped off the couch. I was so panicked that Kenny wasn't going to win. Right? I was invested, and so give you an example. I saw Oasis, the British band, a bunch of times in the 90s, including their first ever US tour, and it was exciting. There was a palpable sense of electricity in the air that you were seeing something unique and new, even if they were ripping
generationally significant, historically significant in rock and roll. I was there too.
and I just didn't buy a ticket for the Oasis reunion tour. I just whatever, I don't care. This is Noel got divorced and he needs some money. So the Who is having their 10th. This is our farewell concert tour. You won't get fooled again, right? And I think they're 80 years old, so it probably will be. But I have no desire to see that. This. This is
quite the introduction, Eric, for this match.
A friend said, "Oh, well, Kenny's got so much mileage. He's had so many surgeries, so Okada's going to have to carry him." And I'm like, "No." Kenny's looked great this year in the limited matches he's had, physically in terms of being able to still do everything. Yeah. Okada just, as mentioned earlier, just hasn't done much, right? It's Okada who has everything to prove. Fortunately, he's got one of the best match layout people of the modern era in Kenny Omega in the ring, and they have plenty of really good match layout idea people in the back, like Christian Edge, Will Osprey. You can ask all of those guys, hey, what do you think? What are some unique spots we can do if they're willing to give that up? So I mean, am I excited for the match? My FOMO kicked in again tonight. So after a few beers on Double or Nothing evening, I was so excited. I booked a hotel room, a mile walking distance of the where the Rangers play. I put a flight on hold, and then the next morning I woke up and thought, well, it's probably going to be really hot in Dallas, and I don't really want to stand outside waiting to get in the building. And then I've since been told it's an indoor arena if they want it to be, like there's a roof, retractable roof. But I quickly, in the cold light of day, I canceled. And then tonight, when they did this angle, I was ready to book my hotel again and get my ticket, but I haven't done so yet. I'm having a hard time pulling the trigger.
Yeah. Well,
can I just say that you probably picked the wrong bands? NoFX was great when I was in high school, and NoFX was great on their reunion or on their retirement show.
I would see an Oasis reunion show if they actually came here, Eric. You and I texted about the number of times Chicago gets a show, but Minneapolis St. Paul doesn't. That's in reverse for what's the show you're?
Pulp,
Pulp,
a Britpop band, although they would hate that label, has reunited in their. I think they're in their early 60s, maybe. So I don't think they're going to bring it like NoFX.
I think Noel Gallagher can, his style, I love his solo work. So I think that can survive into his 50s just fine. All right. Eric, anything else you want to add about Okada-Omega or Dynamite tonight before we let you go?
It looks like the heavy heat stuff has continued on the second 2 hours. I saw Mercedes taking a beat down at the hands of
the Doc's getting a lot of work.
Mercedes. Yeah. I don't know if this time he had to have a blood pack in his hand to put in Kenny Omega's mouth for him to bite down on like he did. Well,
next time, Eric, next time we'll have Kenny actually like eat glass for you so that he can actually cough up real blood.
Don't give them any ideas, Wade.
or eat something.
That'll be the next Derby match.
I thought the blood looked fine. I haven't seen people cough up blood often enough to know what you see that made that so fake. But I'm not saying it didn't look fake. I'm just saying it didn't jump out to me. It just was, but I'm fine with it. It wasn't as we see missed moves and people standing at ringside waiting to catch people forever, especially luchadors who take forever to posture to the crowd before diving onto people waiting to catch them. That's way worse than this slightly not quite the right color of red for you, Eric, blood capsule.
I think we should all watch WrestleTix to see how many the next update in 7 days. How many tickets do they move in the next 7 days? That's the last 7 days. I think they had moved about 1,200, 1,300 tickets. Yep. They're getting closer to 20,000. Not there yet. I think they're under 18 still. But does this angle move tickets? Do people on the fence? Do they hit the button or not?
And Don Callis should keep track of that too. I want to see him bring it. I want to see Kenny bring it more, Eric. I was critical of Kenny's promo tonight. I mean, it wasn't negative. It just wasn't enough positive. It was, and obviously they had a big angle plan. Kenny wasn't trying to sell the match with the speech. They knew they were going to have this big angle, but Kenny should be talking about this like it means something to him, like it does to fans who lived through it and at the time. And he just was sort of a man of few words. And I know that's him, but I just think this is a match. A legendary match for him to step up, and he didn't, and it's been 6+ years of him needing to step up outside of the occasional and sometimes semi-frequent standout pay-per-view matches. I just wish he showed some evidence of caring enough to put in the time to at least make an attempt, show that he made an attempt.
I would love a Bill Watts UWF Mid-South style from the hospital bed promo.
Oh, that'd be good.
And he getting fired up. That would be old school. I would pop for that.
Speaking of suggestions, Ramen Noodle says they should get some Japanese tables and photographers around the ring for the match at All In. I'm all for that. I miss ringside photographers. That added such a, watch some old footage from the 70s and all the people leaning in the corner. And I mean, that's how I did a ton of that ringside photography in the 80s and 90s.
That's what made that Austin and Michaels with Tyson made it feel bigger, was the photo journalists that are all around ringside.
Yeah. Yep. Eric, anything else?
That is it. I will leave you guys to it.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate you stopping by.
Take care.
You bet. All right. I'll probably be talking to Eric in a few weeks in our All In pay-per-view preview show on the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Podcast. Search Wade Keller. Okay. Let's, Griffin, anything else you want to add on Okada-Omega at this point? We might go back to the chat and check email to see if more conversation. But anything else stand out that you want to bring up before we move to our next caller?
No, we covered everything
cool.
I had.
Awesome. So Johnny is joining us. I believe it's his debut. Johnny, welcome.
Hey guys, thanks for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling in. What's on your mind about Dynamite tonight?
Where
are you calling from, by the way?
From Australia. So it's middle of the workday here. So good to get a chance to call in.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about Osprey.
By the way, I'm sorry to do this to you. We're only seeing half your face. Can you shift slightly?
It's very awkward to find the middle when it goes into tri-screen. Yeah,
totally. But I know what I'm going to do is I'm going to be like, how can I actually see his face? And it doesn't work that way. So I just want to relax. All right. Thanks, Johnny. Go ahead.
Yeah, Osprey Swerve, I guess briefly first on Omega Okada. I kind of it was 8 years ago at this point. I'm not really feeling the nostalgia, and tonight didn't do much to kind of get me excited for it again. Yeah. But I'm much more excited and interested, I guess, in what's going on in the main event scene. And the Osprey Swerve match was good, but I felt the finish was really weak. It was a really good chance, I think, if they wanted Swerve to be standing tall at the end, just put Swerve over. I don't really feel this was the time to do a time limit draw, and keen to get your guys' thoughts on the decision to do the draw.
I didn't have a problem with it, but I don't have a problem with people having a problem with it. It felt a little bit like a cop-out. In my personal bias, I think draws should be used a little more often for epic matches. AEW from the beginning has had a 30-minute TV time limit. These two are so close. My biggest criticism is Swerve going, let's keep this going, sudden death. And I'm like, what is sudden death in a wrestling match? It's always sudden death. Think through what you say. It's not extra exciting when you go, hey, if the pinfall happens in overtime, that's the end of the match. So I thought that was just kind of stupid. But I thought Taz was good to come to the defense of the fans who were booing, because that match was more than good. I thought it was really, really good. And if you don't like the finish, if you don't like how it was booked, don't disrespect the wrestlers. And, although I will say this, I bet some fans would say the wrestlers should take it as a compliment we're booing because we wanted more. And I get that. But Taz did go, hey, come on. I know fans are frustrated, but that was a hell of a match in these two. I think the boo should have turned to a standing ovation, frankly. I thought it was like a top level TV match, top level 30-minute match. I thought it was. It's weird to say this given the density of high spots and the pace in the last 8 minutes, give or take. But I thought it was one of Osprey's more disciplined, high spot dense matches. I'm not even sure why I have to watch on split screen other matches of his, but I just sort of felt like they were trying to win and not just show off and add stars to their rating. Griffin, let me throw it to you and then I'll throw it back to Johnny.
In many ways, I thought it was exactly what it needed to be. It's a TV match. That's the one that you get for your regular cable or Max subscription. And that's regular TV, and I did not expect a conclusive finish. Going back to my old school WCW Saturday night days, the 10-minute time limit was always there, and it might have got used a little bit more often. But the 30-minute time limit is something that they should keep consistent. I can't remember which commentator said, we're at 28 minutes. And that told me as a viewer, they're going 2 more minutes and the bell's going to ring. Nobody in the audience knew that.
They weren't doing if you listen to really old, a house show event.
5 minutes have extended in the match.
Yep. Five. We're at 15 minutes gone by, 15 minutes remain. Or we're at the 45 minutes gone by, 15 minutes remain. You'd have the ring announcer saying that to the live audience to prepare them for it, and they didn't get that here.
Yeah, and some promotions would do it way too soon into the match, start doing it 5 minutes in. We didn't need it that fast, but I do think that it's good when they have a 5-minute warning to alert the crowd and also build the drama in the match. He just climbed the ropes and bell rang. Yeah. So there wasn't any type of build and drama to the end. And I think that's the one criticism I have, why I say it's exactly what it needed to be, because now you want more and you'll pay to see the next match. But there was no drama in the finish of the match.
So, Johnny, the Swerve won last year at Forbidden Door in 28 minutes, and you advocate for him winning again here, and the story being Swerve has Osprey's number?
Yeah, the announcers talked about it a bit at the start of the match, that I think Swerve is up 3-1 lifetime against Osprey, and I'm like, well, if he's already up 3-1, being 4-1 and that this is just another guy that maybe Osprey doesn't have the number on. Like, we know that at some point in the future it's building towards an Osprey world title win, in theory, if everything keeps on the current trajectory. So why not put another hill in front of him and Swerve just having his number again? It doesn't have to be the draw. I don't think adds anything, but you can just drop another seed by just brave booking, right? I think something that's talked about a lot on the show is brave booking, and I think this was a chance to do it. And if you wanted to do the draw, seed in some draws or near draws in the weeks leading up to it. And I don't think they've done a good enough or consistent enough job with the time limit draw concept in AEW to really lean on it here.
Yeah, Griffin, that's a good point you made. Is just prepare us for it by not making it seem when it seems like we're doing a draw, not because that happens here, but because we don't want to do a finish. People will resent it more, and I think Johnny's reaction would have been more. The negative aspects of Johnny's reaction to the finish would have been muted if this felt like something they didn't trot out in order to avoid a finish of a match that was inconvenient to do a finish for, and it has that meta vibe to it. It also doesn't help when Swerve afterwards, Derek Mitchell pointed this out in the chat. I wasn't a fan after the match of Swerve saying this is where the best wrestle, if that hasn't been beaten in our head ad nausea. My issue is just you just didn't win. You just failed to win, and you are talking about match quality. Why are you talking about match quality? You're let other people admire how entertaining it was while you were trying to win, but don't go into meta space or social media space and go, well, that was really good, wasn't it? I didn't like that either. I want wrestlers to care about winning and not be thinking about praise they're going to get on social media or some match rating later.
I think it kind of makes sense here because, hey, this is where the best wrestler, I couldn't beat him in 30 minutes. We're going to need more time. Maybe in phrasing, they could have made that work.
Johnny, what do you think?
Yeah, I didn't like the promo either after the match and continuing on to I think the sudden death concept, it post a time limit draw is very played out in pro wrestling. I'll give a shout out to one of my other favorite shows, Wrestling Coast to Coast, where this is a topic that they hit on fairly frequently, as it happens a lot. Yes. I think on the indies. But I also think, I think this match at the start was kind of like the best and the worst of AEW. You had the bad promo from Swerve at the end about why to continue. I don't think the announcers were particularly clued into the story of the match and the work they'd done building up to it the last few weeks. And then you had the Death Riders nonsensically coming out to do nothing, as it seems. They had no incentive to come out at that point. You're going to have the Bucks come out anyway, so why have the Death Riders come out? It just puts, it's just dumb heels coming out to put a babyface that's not that opposed to them. Nothing around the match. I really loved the match. I think the match was great, but it was just so many irritants around the match that really sort of is one of the reasons I'm probably being less interested in AEW, probably, since MJF kind of ruined the company.
Yep. No, I get all that. I mean, what you don't want is to watch a TV show and see things happening that reminds you of the booking reasons, the meta. I don't want to overuse meta, but the meta reasons for it happening. Well, we got to get Moxley on TV. We're building up to this match, and so we're going to have him and his crew do something that might not feel like it's in their own interest if this were real, but it's to get them on TV to set the stage for what we're doing, what we're trying to build in a single switch. I didn't think this was egregious, but I see where you're coming from on it. I mean, the idea is, we're hovering around you. Now we know you're targeting us. Well, we're going to outnumber and target you. They did set that up with Christopher Daniels with a terribly mic'd opening segment. I don't know why that wasn't reviewed. Saying, Hangman, there's some people in the locker room who will fight for you, others won't. I'll work on that. But we know that, you're outnumbered because of your past and the fact that you're kind of a loner. So they wanted to visually establish that part of the Moxley faction. But you want to make sure Moxley is coming across as an intellectual / ultra-violent heel. You want to make sure that the things he does are apparently in the self-interest of the Death Riders when they act, and there isn't just something for show to help fill TV time. You want that there to be integrity to that. But Griffin, any thoughts on that?
No, I don't really have anything to add.
Yep. Johnny, anything else for us? What else is on your mind?
Maybe just briefly on the Moxley Hangman segment promo. Moxley's promo to me just kind of was like nonsense that didn't mean anything. I didn't really understand why the Moxley character would want Hangman to bring his best. Like I didn't really get what they were going for with that whole segment, other than just a chance to get the Ops re-involved to save Hangman and a little bit of fire at the end. But the Mox side of it made no sense to me.
I've always thought Mox, going back to Dean Ambrose, his promos have never made much sense to me. But
yeah, I mean, he said they want Hangman focused because it's do or die time for him. And he's saying, I've watched you a long time. I don't understand you. I don't like you. You've got to find it in the next 4 weeks, step up and become the man everybody wants you to become. But if you're not prepared to do it, pick up your shit and get the hell out. I think if Moxley would say that he wants his heel character has been expressed disgust with how wrestlers in AEW act, and Hangman is part of that. And so he's trying to say if AEW is going to stand for, and again, it sounds like a babyface promo, but if AEW is going to stand for what I want it to stand for, we need you to bring your best. So if I beat you, I'm beating somebody who isn't lost in some other world, moping around, drinking, burning houses down, invading homes, whatever. I just be focused because I want to beat you at your best and not have any excuses. But that's not a babyface. Or that is a babyface promo, not a heel promo, to have somebody bring their best. That's the issue with it. I think that's right what you're getting at, Johnny.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. For me, it rings like the Moxley sort of piece. It's like, to me, it was total babyface at the start, and then it's being used against the characters that least conform to the story that Moxley's painted. When I think about the likes of Swerve and Hangman, they're the ones who have been kind of the bright spots in AEW for the past year or so. In
fairness to Moxley, he didn't pick Hangman to be his opponent. So it just is his opponent. I guess I see him calling out Hangman and saying, bring your best, not because he targeted him for that mission statement from whenever the new faction formed and the mission statement started going out there. But it's more, now I know you're my opponent. Let's set an example for everybody. Bring your best. I mean, I'm doing my best here. You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to, go, okay, where is he coming from on this? And, he's trying to come from somewhere. I see a little bit more of a logic through line tonight with it than some of the other stuff I've heard him do.
And I think that would make more sense to me if Moxley's matches recently hadn't involved, a lot of interference, low blows. Like if it was when he got to the match, like they had a straight up one-on-one match. And I think you can do that as a heel if you're doing the gang beatdowns and stuff beforehand. Totally fine, but the narrative thread just hasn't been there strong enough for me to buy into that as the story.
I'm not going to defend the larger story arc at all. The announcers need to. There should be a clear message when Moxley talks, which is bring your best, and there should be an announcer going, wait, so you can low blow him, so you can have your thugs interfere on your behalf because you don't think you can beat him. What's all this talk about Moxley saying he wants wrestlers to bring their best? He doesn't bring his best. He brings his crew. Like, you need to underline the hypocrisy of him as a heel. And that's just not part of the narrative. It doesn't seem to cross anybody's mind to actually kind of tie together why he's a heel, because he says he wants he has this grand plan to make AEW great, but he's no better than any other, low blow, cheating, cowardly heel.
One of the things I've always thought AEW did really well was when a manager is out with their wrestler in their faction, they sit in on the commentary and they help get their act over.
Yeah. There's
nobody sitting in on commentary for that crew. And I think Claudio could be great at it. He's a smart guy. He would know what to say, when to say it, and get the right parts of the story over.
Yeah, I think that's a worthwhile suggestion to consider, having a voice, because then it would give whoever, Excalibur, Tazzy, and like a chance, or Nigel and Tony on Collision, if that happened to ever happen, a chance to prod and push, and then it would cause Claudio to kind of push back, and then they could call him out for the holes in his argument. Because people's default is they like Claudio, they like Moxley. kind of like Wheeler. Let's.
Callis and Jericho have always been two that when they joined commentary for their crew, I always thought they did a very good job of getting their people over more because they were on commentary.
Yeah. Cool. Johnny, you want anything else?
I guess just while we're talking about commentary, I've really enjoyed Ian Riccaboni the last few weeks. Like, I'm not a fan of Tony Schiavone, not a fan of Excalibur, huge fan of Taz. What have you guys thought of Ian and the job he's done the last couple of weeks on commentary?
Griffin, what do you think?
There was a character named Thumper in a movie called Bambi, and he said, "If you don't have anything nice to say." I'm not an Ian Riccaboni guy. I am a Schiavone guy, and I think that my God, his name's escaping me. I keep wanting to say Desmond Wolfe. That's
Nigel McGuinness.
Nigel McGuinness. My God. I think Nigel's, man, him and Wade are two of the best on commentary right now. I love listening to Nigel.
I will say I think Ian's been okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't think he stood out. I think he's in an awkward spot. He's not the lead announcer. He doesn't have a point of view. He's sort of there to fill in a little ROH detail. I think that's my problem with him is there's better that could be there. They have other, if you're going to have a 3-man booth, I think the best way to go is the straight man play-by-play, a heel color, and a babyface color. And color is always best done by a former wrestler. Or have that third person be like more of a historical or specialist in some way. Yeah. It's like somebody is a specialist in some category.
Yeah.
But I agree, a point of view is good, and I think the default point of view should be, this is a sport, we're here to call it, and anything that gets in the way of us finding out who the best wrestler is undercutting why we're all here, and we should be angry about it. And I mean, that's what Joe Tessitore does great. He is a throwback. He gets it because he comes from the sports world. He knows what it would feel like if suddenly, you're calling a really important hockey game, and then, suddenly there was like, I don't even know, some sort of cheat. A coach throws thumbtacks onto the ice. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
A sports guy that's not afraid to be like, oh, they're going to think I'm taking this too seriously.
Right. Exactly.
Like, he gets it.
Yep. And we've had some WWE announcers over the years where, they look like they were, I'll use a dated reference, right out of a Sears catalog, showing off the winter collection, and but very worried about what their college friends would say if they looked like they were taking this seriously. So, Tessitore's great. Johnny, what do you like about Ian? Let's give him a chance. Let's give you a chance to defend his honor.
Well, I guess number one, he's not Excalibur. Like, I find Excalibur to be like he's my least favorite announcer in all of wrestling. Like, he's just no emotion. Talks way too much about history that, to be honest, I don't care about. Like, I want to be invested in the show I'm watching, not the show that happened 10 years ago. And to me, Ian doesn't get anything wrong, right? To me, Tony Schiavone is like on another planet half the time. And I think if it was a 2-man booth, Ian Riccaboni and Taz, I like that. That would probably be my ideal Dynamite booth at this point. Although taking Chris's point that Nigel is also fantastic and a huge fan of him. For me, they're the 3 announcers I would experiment around with if I was AEW to see if there's a combination there that takes off. So it's probably less about Ian being good and more about my distaste for what the other announcers have.
Yeah, it is hard to put a finger on, to articulate why Excalibur is so well liked in certain circles, and then there's this group, and I think you articulated pretty well, Johnny, who are with Excalibur, it's like, it feels like
he needs to be the wrestling nerd. He needs to be the Mike Tenay.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. There could be there can be a force, but Johnny be like, no, not on a show I want to watch. Like, but with Excalibur, there's a sense of, there was this great time period that inspired AEW's existence, and all you people who weren't part of it aren't cool enough, and I don't know if I really am all that excited to explain it to you, because you should just do your research, but I'm going to rub in that, I don't know. I mean, there's some aspect of that, and I don't think he seems like somebody whose skill set is that emotional range in his voice that pulls people into something, as Johnny says, where you feel like what's happening now is the most important thing, rather than what's happening now is a derivative of something that he knows is great. and if you don't, you're not the super fan. I'm struggling to fully articulate it, but I know we hear it a lot, but yet there's a whole group of fans who have the same history that Excalibur does and liked the same things the last 10, 20 years, and they just see him talking to them. But I think the thing with Excalibur is he talks to that slice, and it's not a slice. His approach doesn't help grow the audience. It super serves a slice that is their core. Johnny, your critique or anything you want to add to that framing of it?
I think that's right. And I think there's opportunity, right, in terms of the way AEW presents its product. You could bring Excalibur in for Omega Okada match in the way they've used Jim Ross in the past to talk about the history of it and how it's relevant. Or in modern streaming, why not have an alternate feed that's just Excalibur talking about all of the history and lore for those super fans? There's no reason you couldn't do a separate feed that's just Excalibur going off on whatever weird stuff he wants to, but have a more relatable desk for the fans that you're trying to bring in, because that's the way to grow, is to bring in new fans and people that don't have that history. And at this point, it's AEW history they don't have. And I feel like even that's not really talked about enough.
Yeah.
His job is the play-by-play guy. He's the number one salesman of the promotion. And he needs to sell you the product that you're supposed to want to watch, instead of selling you on going back and getting PWG DVDs.
I don't find Excalibur distasteful, or I just find him not inspirational. Yeah. I don't think there's people I'm angry at when I listen to them announce, and Excalibur, I don't feel his announcing other than, I don't know. Anyway, enough. I think he does I think he's gotten better. I think he does a fine job, but he is not ideal for the role. AEW just hasn't quite. Taz, I think, is the strength of the whole team. Yeah. Some weeks are better than others with him, and some stretches of time have been better than others with him. I'll be, I think there's times where I think he's, not phoned it in, but maybe the product just wasn't good for him. I think he's doing a really good job right now with the product he's calling. I think it's a good match. Zach Barber says, I want my lead play-by-play guy to be able to call the moves consistently. Yeah, but honestly, Zach, that's not as important as getting people emotionally invested in what's happening. Having a technically right name for a hold is good. Yes, that's good. It's not bad, but my God, that is so distant from connecting with people emotionally and making them feel what's happening, enhancing the emotions of what's happening. The correct terminology is not selling tickets. It is a thing you should have, but if you don't, it's not as much of a deal killer as not connecting with people emotionally. And that is where Excalibur just personality wise or vocally just doesn't have it at a national top level announcer level. I don't think he'd get a job in any other sport if he weren't a super fan of wrestling with, a background in PWG. I mean, there's faults to him that nobody would. I don't want this to be taken out. I just don't think if he wanted to go call other sports, and I'm setting aside the mask gimmick thing, I just think they would go, you're not on a national TV level for what you're doing.
JR, that's why JR was the best. He wasn't quite what a maneuver, but he didn't call every hold like he was Joey Styles.
Yep. Derek Mitchell says, Gordon Soley sold you championship wrestling from Florida. Lance Russell did from Memphis. Jim Ross, WWF. Joey Styles, ECW, sold the importance of angles with emotion. So, yep. I just don't, there's going to be an Excalibur fan club, and he, wins some year-end awards and stuff like that. But the type of affection that exists for somebody with more personality for the chair they sit in, I don't think we'll be there. Johnny, great hearing from you. Hope you'll call again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, guys.
You bet.
Thank you.
All right. So let's talk about some other things that happened on this show. And Griffin, I'll let you kind of pick the next topic. Obviously, it's very heavy. I mean, we with Johnny's call, we got in a little bit of the Moxley stuff. Very heavy on the first and last segment. But yeah, we had some other stuff. What jumps out to you?
First, T-shirt game recognizes game. I got to give a shout out to the guy in the Ricky Martin shirt that would wear that right behind the announcers on TV. So good job, sir, if you're watching this. Megan Bain, I think she's something big. I hope they don't ruin her. Penelope Cruz as her mini-me. It gives me a little bit of China with Stacey Carter vibes. And that wasn't I think that you don't want to hurt Megan Bain. I love seeing Ty J back as a tag team. I really like Ty Mello, partially because I think she's adorable. But I just think she's fun. I like watching her in the ring. I like her and Anna Jay as a tag team. So I like seeing her come back from, going off and having her baby. So glad to see that return. And I like it when you come back with this is a new era, and she had the face paint and something different in her look.
How about what we saw with MJF, Shelton Benjamin, Bobby Lashley with MVP tonight? We had a fill-in with Masco Dorada, and then we had Speedball and Kevin Knight. What stood out to you there with especially the build to next week's Mexico City show, MJF? I actually kind of have to backtrack because this also flowed. So let me backtrack. You had Mystico winning a match against Blake Christian. Let's start there. What do you think about, because like Todd Martin pointed out last week on The Fix, when you show, or maybe it's 2 weeks ago, but when you show a video type, and I think it was WWE's video hyping, they're both doing it, but the lucha moves, like you need more than that. Like it like it's going to Zach's comment, Excalibur needs to name the moves, and I'm going to judge somebody if they don't know the name of every move, and it's like that's just objectively speaking not nearly as important as the other things we talk about for an announcer. And in this era, knowing or showing moves, it's sort of like, okay, but everybody's doing dives. In fact, there's too many dives. And so, there's a bunch of masked wrestlers. We don't culturally, the larger segment of the audience needs to be brought on board, and maybe it's worth the effort, maybe it's not, to understand the culture. But you have a bunch of people in masks, so you lose that connection, kind of like Excalibur with the mask. There is something to that where you lose that facial reaction connection.
How many people would have known if they didn't do an angle to switch masked wrestlers that they switched masked wrestlers?
Yeah, that's the thing. So when you're trying to get wrestlers over by showing moves, and the moves are no longer spectacular like a highlight package in 1987 would have been if you showed these moves, or even 1995. So what is the selling point? So I think in AEW they're somewhat cognizant of that, even though Tony Khan's default mode is, wrestling nerd, it's lucha, it's another culture, and everyone's going to be excited about it because my little echo chamber on social media is excited about it. That haunts some of what they do. So with the mystical match, did he look impressive enough to live up to the framing of him as a big deal? And then because to me, I thought like Christian looked pretty athletic too. You could tell me he was a big deal from some other culture and country, and I'd be like, oh, look at that. So a lot of it is a story you tell and how you frame them. How do you think they did?
All of the people in AEW are super athletic and can do most of those moves. Eric will probably hate me for this, but they needed a video package. MLW does a much better job with Mystico than AEW does. They present him as a legend. They build him up in promos as such. He is the biggest draw in Mexico right now, on the CMLL side for sure. And they treat him as that legend and build him up in packages leading to him coming out, much the way they did for Kenny and Okada tonight. Something like that for Mystico to help us understand the gravity of who MJF's wrestling next week, because the crowd's going to be insane for that match. And MJF's bringing back the red, white, and blues. And if Ringside Collectibles does not make an action figure this time, they're losing money. I need one. So I love the red, white, and blue outfit that MJF has. But yeah, I think we needed to build Mystico up and understand why next week in Mexico the crowd's going to go crazy for him.
And that's the thing. Let's keep in mind and I think on occasion it's fine. You're not going to grow if you do this all the time, but you want to set up something on TV so there's a backstory for the whole audience, with in the back of your mind knowing the atmosphere is going to sell it. When MJF steps into that ring and does his shtick, and that's not a derisive term. In this case, I mean, it's Mystico's gonna be hugely over, and MJF's gonna get to play. I mean, it's gonna be a throwback to another era in a sense because of the way the fans there react. I just hope, yeah. So, and Ramen Noodle says, I'm sure the Arena Mexico crowd will give Mystico the response he deserves. I think they did enough tonight. And I mean, that's fine. I mean, this is not, I think they did enough tonight is a good way to put it. You know, you got to do something. We'd be critical if they didn't. And they did. And this is what it was. But I don't think the average viewer that AEW is trying to win over is going to go like text their friends going, did you see Mystico? You know, like there's nothing spectacular about him. It's just you have to buy. And that's why promotions having credibility, announcers having credibility is key, because fans will buy into a story you sell them if you have credibility. And there's this other culture, this whole other wrestling world. If you tell us it's true and then we get a hot crowd next week, it'll be a good payoff.
I probably wouldn't have reminded people that he was sloppy Sin Cara.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you get too cute.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, MJF does that.
He's the one to get too cute.
Yep. So we moved on to MJF, Shelton, and Bobby against Speedball, Kevin Knight, and Masker Dorada. Anything about that stand out?
No. I think good action got Bobby and Shelton over as the powerhouse. MJF as the hanger-on. Some of his MVP worship was weird. We'll see where they go with that. It continues to be the angle where MJF is not the guy I would have picked to put in a faction like the Hurt Syndicate. But now we're in the story and we'll see where they go with it. So we'll see.
I mean, how are you feeling about it? Expand on that. I mean, MJF, I watch and I'm like, okay, is Bobby faking being okay with MJF? Sort of, if you're going to help us win, that's fine. But ultimately, he's sort of annoyed by him, and they're giving off hints of that. Is Shelton trying to be in the background? What do you think of what they're actually trying to do and then their success executing it?
Well, I assume it's eventually going to lead to the reason they lose the tag titles is MJF, and the MJF Bobby Lashley feud is the ultimate payoff. And I'm here for annoying MJF versus Bobby Lashley. I don't know how long I want to take to get there, because they ought to see through him. They should have seen through him, and that's why he's not the guy I would have put in the angle. I would have put somebody that wasn't known to be slimy, and of course, I'm sure they're thinking they're bigger, they're badder, they're tougher, they can take care of MJF. But he's the political manipulator. He's the smarter guy. It's not all about brawn. So again, not the guy I would have put in there, but now we're there. So I do want to see the ultimate payoff. I just don't want it to take forever to get there.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, Zach Barber is a super chat. He says, Ty J, Bane Ford, Heart Blue. The will they, won't they with Willow and Stat. Thoughts on the brewing women's tag team division? Griffin, what do you think?
I think tag teams give more women places to be on the show, and I am all about. I love women's wrestling. I love the characters that come up with. I legitimately think Toni Storm is the greatest thing in wrestling right now. I love when a character knows their character and they are all in.
Yep.
And there are more women that are better at that than the men are. I think they are all in on understanding who they're out there to be. So I like seeing more of them featured on TV. They need to have purpose for being on TV. Do we need more title belts? I don't think so, but
we're probably going to get it. I think
there's got to be a reason for having tag team matches.
Yeah.
And the tag team titles would be that.
I mean, so one, you can have a reason for tag matches, even if you don't have tag titles. I don't want that to be a requirement in the sense that, there's two people feuding with two people and they're aligned. I mean, you can fight for the sake of pride, but yeah, if you're gonna have a whole division, I mean, I am with you. I mean, I think you can do that. I think merging Continental and International frees up a spot on the board of how many titles Tony Khan's willing to promote, I guess. And then he's been.
They can just keep the ROH titles to ROH. That would help.
Yeah. I know. Oh, for sure. No question about it. I don't know. I don't think that serves a purpose. And I would, yeah. I shouldn't say I don't think it serves. I think it serves a purpose that keeps the ROH brand out there for some reason that Tony Khan has. Yeah. But I think there's a bigger negative than the positive that comes from it. You can focus on the positive of a little bit of ROH exposure to the AEW larger audience, but the negative is it just waters down all the titles if there's so many titles, and there's this whole other world you're not watching, and they don't tell you how to watch it, and it just feels weird. I think Ty J, as Zach put it, there's chemistry there. I think Megan Bain and Penelope Ford, they're dressing alike, they're coming out together. It feels like a cohesive unit. There's a contrast to their styles, but a match to their kind of energy and personalities and attitudes. So that works. Heart and Blue is good. I mean, it feels like that happened somewhat organically and consistently. Mm-hmm. One of the issues I have, and it's pointed out by Derek Mitchell in a chat, I know Speedball, and this is about the men's division, but it applies to booking. I know Speedball and Kevin Knight are the next tag team contenders, but in my opinion, they need to have credible tag teams challenging them. By the way, where are the Guns and Private Party? Like, it's another situation where wrestlers just disappear, Griffin.
This is every major promotion that their tag team division disappears. I think TNA might be the best presenters of tag team titles in the last 20, 25 years. I love tag team wrestling. And we get spurts, we get periods. The golden era of NXT when it was Gable and Jordan and FTR. Enzo and Cass, man, that tag team was over. There was a
Breezango.
Been what's that?
Breezango. Sorry.
Oh, well, I'm sorry, I lost you for a second.
Our Wi-Fi got a little flaky. I said Breezango.
Gotcha.
And the flow of tag teams.
Oh yeah.
But Gargano and Ciampa. There's Mojo and Zack Ryder. Yeah, I don't know if these are helping your cause. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I got a soft spot for Ryder, but Mojo, good guy. Wasn't my guy on TV though. But yeah, I love tag team wrestling, and it always makes me sad when the division doesn't have just great matches for contendership. They're doing a pretty good job on SmackDown right now. Watching some of that when I can.
Yeah. I just want there to be a long-term consistent promotion of a division and not just appearances of tag teams with and Excalibur is forced to do this sometimes. The crash course, in case you're not watching ROH, in case you're not watching Dynamite, in case you weren't watching New Japan, in case you don't know about PWTorch, in case you weren't watching Dynamite 5 years ago, and we haven't mentioned them since, let me quickly catch you up on something that, or social media, something that develops in social media, and I'm going to try to, catch you up. I mean, just like put it on Dynamite. If it's on Collision, give us, a highlight package and have it feel like it's a division that's getting full attention. So people who are early adopters to caring about it don't feel let down. And it is a way to get more of the women who just disappear, whether it's to ROH or just they aren't used. It gives them a reason to exist. And WWE is, through NXT and the main roster, there's the women's division is so strong right now that AEW does feel a little behind in that respect. They have less time per week with 4 hours compared to WWE's 7.5, but still. Okay. Let's go to some emails to probably get close to the end of today's show. We'll go to Scott first, who says, Wade, they are listening. We actually got a really nice video package recapping the Okada-Omega matches from New Japan. Even the audio sounded nice for a change. As a person who has never watched any of those matches, that video package brought me up to speed, and now I'm actually excited to see their match at All In. I also really liked how they weaved the Death Riders throughout the show a few times tonight. Using the Bucks to take out Swerve and Osprey, assaulting Hangman the way they did is telling a great story about how much the Death Riders see Hangman as a viable threat to take the title off of Mox. Really great stuff. I can't wait for All In, and AEW has been on a roll this year, in my opinion. I'm getting 2019, 2020 AEW vibes right now. If they can keep this up and continue improvement in certain areas, 2026 will be a huge year for them. Thanks for reading, and have a great night. Griffin, what do you think about that? There's some specifics there we've already talked about. You can talk about that, but big picture is AEW giving off vibes to you of a company that's getting more right than it did the last few years and correcting some wrongs.
We'll have a better sense of that after All In, I think, because I think really what's wrong with AEW is the Death Rider storyline. I think once that's gone, hopefully they can fill that in with something that's a little bit more captivating to want to see. I don't think it's quite working out the way that Moxley envisioned it.
Yeah. Or maybe it is working out the way Moxley envisioned it, and it was just a flawed concept that didn't quite have the support around it to make it make sense. Or the idea itself was missing some things. But yeah. All right, we'll go to JB from Detroit. I really like this Swerve saying the only way to prove you're the best is to finish matches. After the time limit draw was announced, that is how a true champion should feel, and let it be known. My only downside with that is that's the rule. It's a 30-minute time limit. You are calling out the company for having a rule that you signed a contract for. So at the time to either win quicker or insist at contract signing time for an extension of the time limit. I think throwing the company under the bus for that, I mean, I'm not just trying to be agreeable. I get what JB's saying in the sense that he's like, you can't prove you're the best unless you finish a match. But it's like, okay, then make it happen. You're Swerve.
And in UFC, sometimes they go to split decisions, and you're told don't leave it in the judge's decision. You should have fought the fight that finished the fight. So that's kind of what I would say to that. I also think every time they have a draw, I can't think of a time they've had a draw where they haven't either had 5 more minutes or asked for 5 more minutes. I mean, how can you not ask for more time if every other time they've asked for time and sometimes gotten it? Of course, you're going to ask for it. It's one of those, if you do it every time, it's meaningless.
I'm against adding time. I mean, you're right that they've done it. They set the precedent, of course. But if it's a 30-minute time limit, then make it that. For Tony Khan to go, well, we need more time. Well, then why did you have a time limit in the first place? Like, you're Tony Khan.
You signed a match. You signed a 60-minute match. I mean, that's old school booking, and not booking. That's old school booking.
I mean, what are we supposed to believe Tony Khan's reason for a 30-minute draw is? I mean, I'll give my best shot at it. He doesn't want boring matches lasting longer than 30 minutes. But if a really exciting match goes 30 minutes, he will add time to it. So you got to earn your bonus time by being exciting. It doesn't make any sports sense, but I mean, I think that's probably the best canon explanation you can come up with.
I just think a TV match is a TV match, and hey, this match was too good for TV, so we have to take it to pay-per-view. I think what makes a TV match different than a pay-per-view match. That's why I hate having the TNT title defended on pay-per-view. It's the TNT title.
Yeah. I remember back when TV titles were first introduced in the late 80s, and they'd start having them at house shows. Yes, there it is. Sweet. Yes, I love that. That's
the Iron Belt. Here's a sad story. Here's a sad story, Wade.
Yeah.
I bought that belt. Oh no, see, I had it all.
Oh yeah,
set
it's
up.
tough. Yep, you gotta.
Yeah. All right. So I bought that belt specifically to go to the AEW show when they were in Loveland, Colorado. And I was going to wait at the door as early as I needed to, as late as I needed to get Arn Anderson's autograph on it. And he left the company a week before.
Oh, no.
Broke my heart.
Have you chased him down since?
I got an eBay autograph.
Okay.
But not on the belt.
Yeah. So Ramen Noodle says, Wade loves rules, and the annoyingly overused tears coming out of your eyes emoji. I'm fine. If you want to have no rules, have no rules. But if you have rules, there's a presupposition you have them for a reason, And when you arbitrarily don't follow them, or you inconsistently follow them or don't follow them, like countouts in wrestling, like there's a weird thing going on right now, Griffin, in wrestling, where if two people are outside the ring, and tell me if I'm just, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can win a match by countout in some booking scenarios. If you fight at ringside, you beat the 10 count and your opponent doesn't, right?
Yeah.
So you're in, but the count continues and your opponent gets count. But what we have going on now is two people fighting at ringside and a wrestler rolls in the ring and then rolls out, and that resets the count for both wrestlers. Yeah. Which is weird. Like, well, no, that you should have just won. Why didn't you just win? Why did that reset it for the person who didn't get back in the ring? Yes. So my issue, yes, I like consistency. I like structure, not because I want structure to be followed, but because it's a storytelling. It's functionally valuable to tell stories if you are consistent in the structure of the way you tell the story. That applies to everything.
Oh, absolutely.
Movies, TV, comic books.
I am a pop culture story guy, so I'm on Team Wade here. ECW had rules.
Yeah.
Their matches were chaotic and crazy.
Yep.
But they were within a structure of this is the way we do matches here.
Yep.
And when they presented a lucha match, it was presented differently.
Yep.
And when they were presenting Chris Benoit versus Eddie Guerrero match, it was presented differently.
Yep.
For the most part, it was known for insane, no disqualification matches.
Yep.
And you didn't see disqualifications, but there were still rules that were followed.
Yeah. Yeah. Ramanua says, can we meet in the middle and have some rules? Fans have never said we don't want 5 more minutes. Raman, you're not getting my point. Why
you got to pay for that?
Why have a 30-minute time limit at all?
Yeah.
If you're going to extend it when you get there.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, just like you're in the chat right now. You tell me. It's like,
I think it proves your point, actually, that the whole point of this is to make you want to see the next match. There was no finish.
Exactly.
You left pissed off.
Yep.
That's what they wanted this time. They wanted you leaving pissed off. And sometimes that's a good thing to do on a TV show when you've got to tune in again.
That's what people don't understand. Sometimes the promoters doing their job if you're mad, if you're left wanting more.
Yeah.
I'm
a big Andy Kaufman fan, so I love pissing people off for the fun of it.
Type 1 Warrior says it only makes sense rarely to do, but with how often they do it, it makes it look like nonsense instead of genius. By the way, one other criticism. What I don't want. Go ahead, Griffin.
Type 1, local indie pro wrestler here in Colorado.
Oh, sweet.
Great.
You found
guy.
us because of you?
Yeah.
Good. Welcome, Type 1. Come back. I also don't like when time is added, and it seems like it's because the wrestling promoter wants to put their name out there as giving the fans something extra, and it becomes about them. And Tony Khan's name has been mentioned less on air lately. I think it's in response to how much Triple H got mentioned in the build up to his Hall of Fame and a lot. I mean, I think it's sort of like, we're going to be the anti Paul Levesque, who is all over TV for a while. But I think it's smart marketing for Tony Khan, but you don't want to come across like you're a mark for your name being mentioned on your own TV show.
Yeah.
And one of those, promoters. And so not having Shivani yell, Tony Khan has just said this match will go 50 more. It's like when they do that, it feels like it's actually more about Tony Khan than the fans. It's like, hey, here's my chance to be a hero. Well, you're the one who set the 30-minute time limit in the first place. So what? Like, either do it or don't. Yeah.
I don't think Tony's great on TV. I think that's part of it. And Triple H is much better on TV. I like Conrad's theory, or maybe it was Eric Bischoff's theory, but one of them we're talking about. Oh, it's Jeff Jarrett. He's their Dana White now. He's their talking head. Yep. So they're going to put him in that legend position. They're going to talk about him because he's their figurehead. They're going to have acts come and go, and they learned that from UFC that you're not always going to have a Chuck Liddell. You're not always going to have a Randy Couture. You need a consistent figurehead. And
Dana has, matchmaking power. He's charismatic. He's out there. I hung out with Dana White at the first UFC event ever in Las Vegas, when he was just starting to kind of, see, like, I still remember the post-event press conference where he's like, every match went to a draw. We're speaking of draws.
Oh,
On that first Vegas show, it was just a
Oh.
disaster, and I was around him maybe between
Yeah.
fights, and he's like, "Oh God, wait! I hope we get a actual finish in this one." And I mean, a lot has happened since, but like Dana White was an endearing, likable, enthusiastic booster for
Yeah.
MMA and became a face of the brand. MMA does have more of a rotation of top stars, and because people are put in fights, not entirely, but based on merit. And in WWE, you're put on TV based on your ability to draw. I would say there's less of a need for the promoter, the face of the company promoter, putting himself out there than there is in UFC.
Power away though.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's whole. Yep. I mean, look at the McMahon era. I mean, it was. We are the stars of the WWE show, and all the other wrestlers are, as Punk said a few days ago, spokes on a wheel.
Yeah.
And so it's a self-interest thing. A lot of promoters pushed themselves because they were the top draw, and that's why they had the territory. But a lot of top promoters pushed themselves too long because they wanted to retain that power and didn't want to put it in the hands of the wrestlers. It's, speaking of Jeff Jarrett, he did that in TNA in the early years. They had AJ Styles, Ron Killings, Ken Shamrock. They didn't have the biggest budget, but a lot of the focus was on Jeff Jarrett for way too long. And I think he talked himself into believing it's because he had national TV exposure and was great. And I've talked to his dad a lot. And his dad, I remember asking me once, Wade, is there any wrestler out there, this is in the late 90s, who you'd rather have than Jeff Jarrett right now, to be the centerpiece of your company? I mean, his dad was Jeff's, biggest booster till they're falling out. And so I do believe, I say that because I believe Jeff thought he was, and there's a lot Jeff did smarter than a lot of the indie guys who came in, but there comes a point
I'm a Jeff Jarrett supporter, but I wasn't in the TNA days.
That's the thing.
I've loved the guy through his podcast though. Yeah.
Jeff's endearing. I mean, he is the walking, talking, how to win friends and influence people, like human being I've ever met. Like his dad taught him how to look you in the eye, find something interesting that he can talk to you about, that you're passionate about. He's polite. He listens. He doesn't interrupt. It's like he was groomed to be the schmoozer. And it got him places, and it helps him on podcasts. He's a smart guy, but he's not without flaws, and put himself on TV to the detriment for a while. But anyway, Derek Mitchell says, I'm not a fan of Dana White, but he does carry himself with power and authority similar to Triple H now. I mean, going full circle, I don't have a problem with Triple H being the face of the company. And if you're going to be in the Hall of Fame, I mean, I sort of get that too. But there was, I think, a point where it got to be too much about a month ago, and I think they've started to pull back. So, and that's going to happen. Sometimes, you think, and I also think with Triple H, there is the Rock, Brian Gewirtz, like power structure, and there's something about getting yourself over with the fan base, which he's been doing back to his NXT days, that gives you a little extra leverage. Like, hey, but I'm part of the brand. I'm still valuable. The fans trust me. You can give them a little extra leverage with the higher ups because it's not Vince McMahon at the top anymore. So you got to play a kind of a different game, pun intended, than used to. Okay. It was like 30 minutes ago, but we'll go back to JB's next point in his email. I
got to be part of the long Wade tangent. That's awesome.
Yes, exactly. It's part of the initiation. Okay, so number 2. After tonight, it seems as though they're setting up a Swerve Osprey versus Bucks at all. I'm blaming the chat, by the way. The chat steered me left and right over there. So after tonight, it really seems as though they're setting up Swerve Osprey and the Bucks at All In. Osprey taking the bullet was a perfect way to seal the deal.
The bullet from those shoes, those shoes are legit. I just got my pair and they're beautiful.
I'm watching Nick. I caught the tail end of Nick Wayne's promo on Uncollision to see if he has improved his acting since last week. That's a heavy ask because he was so terrible with his cartoonish.
He's so young.
Yeah, he's
so young to be thrown out there. Yeah.
But he has a lot going for him.
Oh, he does.
Yeah, but I'm serious.
He's just thrown out there though.
Whatever he's doing in his spare time, Griffin, it should include acting class. I'm serious. That's part of wrestling now.
Yes.
I talked about Vince. I talked to Vince McMahon about it 25 years ago, or almost 25 years ago. He's like, Wade, we're asking a lot of our wrestlers, and they're not good trained actors. And we're finding that out as our TV time expands. Like it's part of the checklist now. It's not just moves.
He gets it honest from his mom.
Okay, so Swerve Osprey Bucks. By the way, good camera angle on the Bucks. Super kicking. Swerve handcuffed in the corner. The slaps were well camouflaged. Like camera angles is important, just like in a magic show. You don't aim the camera where you can see behind the set. So that was good, and I think the Bucks are carrying themselves as heels who you want to boo well these days.
Yeah. Yep, and not overused. They're not on every episode. They're not in every angle. So.
Yep. Although I'll take them more often on TV. I mean, they don't want to hear that. They like their days off, but
yeah,
I wish they were a more consistent presence on TV during this important time for AEW. JB says, I do think they run back Swerve Osprey a rubber match at some point this year. For sure. Yep. Okada can't be in the Callis family long term. Could we be headed for an Okada face turn after a showdown with Omega at All In? I think Okada Takeshita and Okada Fletcher could both be compelling feuds. Or perhaps Okada stays heel and Takeshita turns face, as everyone cheers him anyway. I feel as though Fletcher has to relish heel for the immediate future. Yeah, it did cross my mind. We didn't bring it up. That Okada being with Callis now is part of a story arc, kind of like MJF and Hurt Syndicate, where you're just sort of waiting for Callis to annoy Okada enough to be the impetus for him turning babyface. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Anybody smart enough, they'll see through Callis eventually and go, because if you don't, you're going to eventually hurt your credibility by staying with him. So I don't think it'll be a long-term merge or marriage, which is probably the right move. And yeah, I do see. I think it'd be great to see Okada be that legend afterwards, and switch and have some matches with some of the heels that come in.
Yep. JB says, my only issue with Okada being in the Callis family, if it's short term, is that it's too close to what is also likely happening with MJF and Hurt Syndicate. So there you go. Yep. Very interesting for MJF to pull out the All-American gimmick. Yeah. I think we're getting Hurt Syndicate against Jet Speed at All In. I hope so. Makes sense, right? That's why they didn't do it tonight. We got the 6-man. What do you think of Jet Speed, by the way, Griffin?
I think they're great. I think it's a good way to use them. I think they're both over without a place to go individually. There's definitely a fan base for Speedball Mike Bailey, and I think they're a fun tag team. I think they're kind of a weird, kind of oddball tag team of two cult favorites that
in a good way
need something to do. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, odd man tag teams are great. I mean, Kane and Daniel Bryan at the time being a great oddball tag team.
Vern Gagne and Mad Dog Vachon going back to like 1980.
Oh wow, yeah.
I mean, no, it's a thing. I mean, I'm sure Jerry Lawler had a handful of them. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right. Although it isn't enough by itself, the Okada-Omega video package tonight was fantastic. They are going to have to work on the Unified Champion as a title name. Very interesting how this episode's main takeaway be Okada-Omega, even with a Swerve Osprey match on the card. I like the strategy if they want to add to the match's importance. As always, love the show and go VIP. Thanks, JB. I think it was smart to start with a hot world-class match. It's part of the AEW brand, and you want to remind people of that regularly. And it's entertaining. It served a purpose. I'm not critical of the draw aspect of it. I don't think that's an example of not brave booking. I think it was purposeful booking. I think I would have been. I could imagine myself being critical if they did a clean finish here, like at the 28-minute mark, instead of just having a draw and going, these two are so good they need more than 30 minutes. I mean, you can tell that story pretty well.
Yeah, I never expected to get any type of clean finish with this match. They didn't put enough time into it. I mean, they had a backstage brawl on Collision a week and a half ago, and we took 1 week to say that the match is going to happen next week. I think sometimes in wrestling we have to set expectations of, it's longer term than getting. You don't want everything all at once, even though you think you do.
Yeah. Couple chat comments to close things up. Derek Mitchell says, as much as I belabor Kenny Omega outfits most weeks looking like he's washing his car, playing pickup basketball, or going to Whole Foods, I've never seen anyone that frumpy at Whole Foods. No, I'm kidding. He looks like a star tonight for the contract signing. And Kyle Fassel said, yes, he finally. He's like, why would I wear something expensive when I'm just going to end up bleeding on it and ruining it? We have a Wi-Fi issue either on my side or Griffin's. Or Griffin, were you able to hear that comment?
It seems like you're freezing up a little bit there, Wade.
Yeah, I'm not sure. You see, yeah. But did you hear the comment about Okada's clothes tonight, the suit?
Yeah. It's never been his strong point, but I think he's comfortable in that everyman role, and I kind of get that. I love dressing like a bum, so I'm not one to say you need to dress nicer but I get it. You do need to look that star if you are going to be the main event star. That's why Cody won't be seen in less than a 3-piece suit if he's not in ring gear. You're always that was going back to Jeff Jarrett, and you're doing a baseball stadium show and everybody's sweating their asses off.
Yeah.
And he's like, you always going to wear that 3-piece suit? And Cody said, always.
Yep. I mean, I don't think everyone should.
Yeah.
But you sort of dress for the job you want, dress for the role you're playing. Or if you don't, I think the issue with Kenny is there just wasn't really an identity that conflicted with the vibes he was giving off, that he just couldn't be bothered. When you come across like you just can't be bothered because you're Kenny and you have a bubbly people telling you how great you are, or you're just not self-aware enough to know how it's coming across, it's just, I just think it undercut people looking at him as royalty in wrestling. You just didn't quite find that look, and it's a process. I think people would have been on board with him on a process to get there. He just didn't seem like he cared. Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to add, Griffin, before we sign off here?
No, I think we covered everything.
Awesome. Well, great having you on. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Check out
Griffin's
Griffin's top 5 list. Yes, thank you very much. So everybody, just a reminder, you can go VIP. I'll throw the directions up on how to get a free 7-day trial through Patreon and Spotify. Just search PWTorch in Patreon or Spotify, and you can get 7 days free access to the entire array of VIP podcasts that get dropped throughout the week. You can also get a VIP membership through your Apple account. Search PWTorch in your Apple Podcast app on your iPhone, and you'll see a charcoal gray logo pop up that says PWTorch VIP. That's our free sample feed. You can subscribe to that for free and then upgrade to unlock all the locked VIP episodes. So that's the way to use your Apple account. It's just as frictionless as it gets if you're a iPhone user in the iOS ecosphere. What's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, and then the full VIP membership is also compatible, by the way, with Apple Podcasts, but also all the other podcast apps out there, and you can stream right from our ad-free website. pwtorch.com/govip is the way to get full information on all the ways to sign up, including that full VIP membership. If you're still with us through the plugs at the end of the show, you are a top candidate to like this show. So please do that right now. And also comment below to help our, just send a message to the AI world of YouTube that people care about what we say and are engaging with the product. And also subscribe to our channel. We thank you for your support on that. You can also set a alarm to let you know when we go live. I mentioned the Wade Keller shows. Also search PWTorch in your podcast app to get the PWTorch Daily Cast lineup for free. That does include the All Elite Conversation Club as part of the weekly lineup. It is free. It is part of the VIP lineup with the commercials taken out, but you can get the whole array of daily casts, a different show each day of the week with different hosts, different themes for free. If you're not going to dive in with a VIP membership, you definitely want to also do that. That includes the NXT post show and more. That'll do it for me for today. Thanks, everybody, and we'll talk to y'all next time.